Hey there, it's Gone Girl. How you doing? Hope everybody's doing great. A friend of mine mentioned to me that maybe I should go tell my story. My whole story. You got kind of the cliff notes at one point, but maybe it's a good idea. I had a friend that was going to write a book for me about me, but I never quite got around to that. Our family is very complex. So I thought I would just start with the bullet points. As I've already stated, I was born in Montreal at St. Mary's Hospital at 3 pounds something ounces. I was dumped in the intensive NIC unit by my mum, who then walked away. I spent 4 months in the NICU and then sent to an orphanage, a Catholic orphanage, for 5 months. And then I was adopted at 9 months because that was actually the standard practice then. The children had to be 9 months of age. My brother as well was adopted at 9 months. At 9 months, though, my new mom, thank goodness she was a nurse, noticed that there was something wrong with me. I used to turn purple when I cried and just different things. So, of course, she took me back to the wonderful hospital and they diagnosed me with a hemangioma. Don't ask me what that is because I don't think I could even spell it anymore. But anyways, so they took a saw to my head, cut it open, took whatever it was out, and caused some damage to my right eye. So I don't see out of my right eye. It's just cosmetically fixed. Um, then I'm glad I missed that surgery because that must have been one heck of a headache. I'm glad I don't remember that surgery. We stayed in Montreal till I was about 6. Um, Part of the reason we moved was because due to the sawing open my head, I had a slight learning disability and I couldn't learn French due to the fact that my mom only wanted English spoken at home. For some reason, I'm the only one out of the family that isn't bilingual. I can read it, I just can't speak it or think it unless I'm actually reading something. After Expo 67 hit, before that, Expo 67 came around. And I don't particularly remember it except for the fact that my house turned into Hotel California, it seemed. It seemed like every relative from pillar to post came and stayed at our house in kind of like increments. One family would stay, they'd leave, and then the next family would come. At that point, I only remember one thing, and that was an SA incident with a cousin who is 20 years older than me. Now, due to our family history, I don't know if I was his only victim or if my brother was as well, because we were already victims of SA by our father. I use that term loosely. But anyhow, my dad was transferred to the drug company in Toronto because he was a drug company executive. And we moved to Agincourt in Toronto. And so then we made change schools, of course, and did all the normal things with kids, except for the fact that my mom was a lunatic and my dad was a pedophile. So that made life very upside down for us. I ended up starting with an eating disorder at around 12. Um, by the time I was 15, I was 79 pounds and pregnant by my dad. I was hospitalized for 3 years, for almost 3 years straight. Back then, they had no education on how to help with an eating disorder. Um, I left the hospital with who turned out to be my daughter's dad. I think the reason I moved in with him was because if I just go back about 8 months prior to that, I was engaged to somebody. His name was Terry Houston. We had a wedding set. I had a bad feeling about this wedding. At the last minute, I didn't show up. Now, if anybody can go back in archives, on the front page of the Toronto Sun and the Toronto Star, I believe, there's a front page article titled Runaway Bride. Yep, that's me. I was the runaway bride. Um, it was a horrible thing. Um, because I did not show up that day, Terry Houston went to my best friend Gail Dupree's house. He murdered her and then proceeded on national TV. It was literally just in pictures on the front page. He then jumped off her balcony, and of course, he died as well. So, of course, that I pretty much know that scarred me for life because after that, I would never get married. I would tell everybody I'm allergic to marriage. I still say that. I'm allergic to marriage. But, anyways, I moved in with my daughter's dad. I have to thank him for some things, even though he was a pain. He did help me with my eating disorder, although all it really did was change from anorexia to bulimia. But again, nobody knew how to treat those kind of illnesses back then. We moved into this little apartment. Actually, we moved in with nothing. We literally had nothing. So it was kind of an adventure. It really was. But we made ends meet and we did our thing and whatever. But one day, Howard, who is an addict, I didn't know at the time he was an addict. I grew to find out years later, had kind of taken off for a couple of weeks. And we had these miniature kittens. They literally were the size of your hand. And that was full grown. A guy I knew randomly had seen him for at least a year going up to my next door neighbor's house. And this was just a 3 apartment building. That's all that was in it. So, we used to chat and talk and all that. Well, Howard was gone and I was 19. He came and knocked at my door and he wanted to see the miniature kittens. And I thought, I know, Cliff, no problem. So I let him in. That led to a brutal rape of myself. And then it also led to what I didn't know at the time. I was his 6th victim. Of course, he did go to jail for a very long time. I didn't have to go to court because, as I say, I was not the only victim. That wrecked my world again. So my eating disorder came back and we moved. We moved to another town over. After that, it was okay, but then I found out that the partner I had was not only a drug addict, but an alcoholic. Me, I did come. My brother was a drug addict. My dad was an alcoholic. My mom was a pill popper. I'm actually the only one in the family that doesn't have that type of addiction. Again, my eating disorder was a whole world of other addiction. So we had Jessica. My parents moved out west, so the pedophile who would have been the grandfather was now safely at the other end of the country, so I could safely have my child. So Jessie was born, and she was the greatest thing since sliced bread. Oh my goodness. She was my whole world. Now, she gave me a run for her money, my money, because, of course, she was anaphylactic to milk, nuts, fish, and soya. So, by the way, that means you have to be a rocket scientist to feed your child. And you had to put stickers on her that says, "Please don't feed me. I could die." Well, we survived that, but by the time Jessie was 2, Howard was out of control. And he had to go. So I left with my daughter, and we began our journey of single parenthood. Now, a lot of people complain about being a single mom and how hard it is, and it is. I'm not negating that. But I'm telling you, I loved it. I loved being a single mom. I loved being the only adult in the house. I also just, I don't know, I just loved it. No, I didn't get child support or anything like that because you know when people who have an addiction that doesn't go with the territory. But we made ends meet and we had a great life, my daughter and I. Not without trouble. My eating disorder got bad again, and I ended up having cardiac failure. They told my daughter and her dad that I was dead 3 times that day. But you know, that actually woke me up. Somehow I knew my eating disorder had to change. I had to do something different. So I worked really hard on it, and they found a medication that actually helps it. So I didn't do all the work. The medication actually did most of it for me. So we just keep going on, and Jessie and I are having fun, and her friends are always in my house sleeping all over the floors and stuff. And we had a great time. Then I got diagnosed with MS. Now, I kind of knew something was wrong because I had had sort of symptoms that just were so random. Like, my hands would cramp up. I couldn't do dishes because the hot water would cramp it up so bad I couldn't pick up a plate. So, but I thought it was arthritis because, that's what you think, even though I was young. I thought being adopted, I do not know my family history. But, of course, we went to a neurologist and did all the testing and this and that. And sure enough, I was diagnosed with MS. But I only ended up in a wheelchair once. And I say once. It was once for about 2 years. But with different medication trials, tons of physiotherapists and stuff, I ended up walking again, no problem. Okay, I couldn't run a mile, but I could chase after my grandkids. I was back. I also was running a community garden of 90 vegetable gardens. And that kept me fit, active. And my grandson and I raised him in the garden. He did a lot of the planting and a lot of everything. Even from an age of 1 year old, I had that kid in the garden. Um, Life was amazing. My daughter was doing great. My grandson, I just loved him, even though they lived with me and drove me nuts. It was awesome sauce. I thought it was just the greatest thing. But lo and behold, one day, I was leaving the garden. I'd been in the sun in 80-degree weather far too long that day, and I had a headache. Pharmacy was not that far from the garden. I just had to cross one of our main streets. So, no problem. I went to the pharmacy to get some pain medication for my headache. Well, sad to say, I never got to take the pain medication that I bought at the pharmacy. On the way back, I started chatting with my friend, and we got to the light. And of course, we waited for the light. Um, from what my friends who were at the accident, because, it was a Saturday afternoon, I could tell you it was literally at 12:28 p.m. that day, because I had looked at the clock just before I stepped off the curb. My friend died instantly, and I don't remember the accident. Everybody around me says that's a blessing. I'm telling you, it's not. It drives me crazy to have a whole block of time going into a coma, now no longer being able to walk. I had to learn a lot of things all over again. First 2 years I had 24-hour care. And then I actually was almost 3 years that I had 24-hour care in my home. And then they ended up to have 16-hour care after that. Because, they had to turn me and do all that stuff that you usually do for yourself that you don't like other people doing for you. But my grandson was a trooper. He would just climb in my hospital bed and goof around and watch movies, play games on the computer. He was kind of like my cheerleader, and he kept me going. And we also got a rescue puppy who I think rescued me. There was a lot of dark days. I couldn't understand why I wasn't getting better. I had had 22 operations previous to this accident, and I'd walk down the hall afterwards like nothing happened. So I couldn't wrap my head around why I wasn't getting better. I have not just the fact I can't walk, that's the least of my problems. The learning deficit is one of my most aggravating. I have a headache that they cannot take away with medication because it's nerve damage. My spinal cord pulled down and snapped back because when I landed, my leg was backwards and at my ear, and it shattered my pelvis as well as turned it the opposite direction. The head injury has caused a headache that never goes away. It's like a migraine on steroids that medication cannot do, as far as I'm concerned, diddly squat for it, but kind of takes the slight edge off it if it doesn't drive you crazy. So basically, in one blink, due to the fact that a driver, like people we know in this community, had to be on the internet on their phone while driving and go through 2 red lights and then turn on to us. You can tell I don't like texting. I don't like people who text and drive. In fact, it infuriates me to no end. Now, before this accident, I skipped around a bit. Um, my sister Ginny was diagnosed with cancer at 42. Um, don't quote me on the age because memory is not good for me. It's for numbers. Um, but she fought. We fought with her for 5 years with ovarian cancer. Now, it was horrible. Worst thing I've ever gone through. The accident was nothing in comparison. Nothing to watch her die. Um, she fought hard. We were given 8 months from diagnosis, and we kept her 5 years. She's not only my angel, she is my hero. We were so close. I mean, she was my absolute world. Um, she also was pregnant by my dad 2 years after I was. Um, and because of her, my dad did go to jail. If it wasn't for her, it would have never happened because me with an eating disorder at the time, they didn't think I could handle going to court against my dad because back then the victim was on trial, not the perpetrator. But we made a deal that my brother was also a victim of him. We made a deal that if he pled guilty to Ginny, we wouldn't all come forward. So he did. My sister died very young. She was middle between me and my brother in age. 2012. We got a call that my brother wasn't answering his door in Toronto. I live outside of Toronto. So we went down. That was a defining moment of my life. Worse than anything ever. We found my brother dead on his bed. And then we found out he had been there for 6 weeks in the summer. I have no idea why he turned his air conditioning off. But it was a suicide. He left us me a note. He felt responsible for not protecting us. And he did it on Mother's Day, which I thought was quite fitting, to be honest. Because my mom knew about the abuse. She knew. Number one, she blamed us. Number two, image, money. She was not going to give up the fancy lifestyle, the mink coats, the trips all over the world. No, sacrifice your kids and don't do what's right. That was my mom's motto. And to be honest, it still is today. So Jeff killed himself. He did suffer from drugs. He had a drug addiction. But to look at him, you'd never know it. He didn't show any outward signs. But as a family, we knew about his drug addiction. That destroyed me. And I had a bout of agoraphobia after that. To this day, I will very rarely ever answer my phone. For some reason, I have this phobia of answering my phone since I got that call. Um, and a few other ones. Sometimes I can smell the decomposition for a split second. Just different things like that. But I got a grief counselor, and life goes on. I actually ended up dating my grief counselor. I don't recommend that, but it it worked for me. Um, so we got through that, and of course, the community garden, I believe, saved me from a lot of uh, well, it's not that it saved me from the trauma. It kind of mellowed me out from it because I love planting vegetables and weeding and talking to all the other gardeners. I was on the board of directors, so I got to help everybody. I loved it. My grandson loved it. We lived in that garden from May till the end of November. It was an awesome life, and it literally was across the street from my house. So it's not like I had to go far. Um, but the day of the accident, that took everything away. And I mean everything. In one blink, I had the perfect life. The next, no life at all. None. Everything has changed. If a siren goes off, apparently I hold my ears and scream. I don't actually hear the sirens, but they're, my family jokingly calls me the first alert because before they can even hear it, I'm already reacting. Um, the garden is gone. Everything is. I have to be taken care of by strangers. My family has kind of given up. Um, Not in the sense that they've given up. Well, they've given into the fact that we know it. This is it. This is as good as it gets. They were great cheerleaders. Don't get me wrong. They really were. But what I was saying in my last video, we do become a burden. We do become worthless. We become helpless, worthless, a burden on everybody, an inconvenience. And the worst part is, we feel horribly left out of everything. Life goes on around us, and we're missing it. And we have to hide the fact that that hurts. That hurts to the core. When I know they're getting together and they're doing this, that, and the other thing, my stomach gets ripped to shreds every time the tears come, and I can't let them know that it's upsetting me because it's my life was ruined, not theirs. So I can't say anything. I can't put that burden on them because I'm the one that got hit by the car, not them. I'm not going to ruin their lives because mine is. It's a lonely existence. It's, I would have never thought my life was going to turn out this way. But I had a great life prior to this. So that's more than some people have. But this is the reason that I applied to MAID, which is MAID. It's the Doctor Assisted Suicide in Canada. I can't be this burden. I can't keep watching life go on without me. And I can't live in this four walls of a room. And to be honest, I'm worth more dead than alive. So it'll be more helpful to my family. And I do have an awesome family. But I now live with the drug addict and alcoholic who somehow ended up living with me in I don't know, in the haze of the after accident stuff. It's frustrating. And I know I'm frustrating to him. But there are reasons that I gotta go. Now, right now, I can't believe the holdup with the legality that had to write to the Quebec government for a replacement birth certificate because we moved units. Literally just moved across the hall. But somehow my birth certificate got lost. And you cannot, I don't know if every country's the same. We cannot sign legal documents here without a birth certificate. And of course, at the last minute, I find out I'm missing a birth certificate. So we've now had to apply to the Quebec government for a birth certificate so I can legally close out my life. But I have so many awesome friends on here. I don't want any of you to think I take that for granted because I don't. You've been there when I'm crying. You've been there when I'm happy. Some of you are so awesome. You check on me every day. And we just talk for that 2 minutes. But I want you to know those 2 or 5 or 10 minutes, and in some cases a few hours. You know who you are. It's meant the world to me. It has actually meant the world to me. I would not have made it this far without all of you. And I'm very blessed. And I really wish that you guys could see each other the way I see you through my eyes. Because I think if you did, people would be more happy and content. And I think you would all get along if you could see yourselves through my eyes. Because you guys are awesome. You don't give yourselves enough credit. You don't give each other enough credit. But the kind and compassion that you have shown to me just shows you could do it for each other. But anyways, that's enough of my lecture. You know, I kind of get lectury. And I don't mean to. It's just, I really do care. And some of you I care very much about. And that's about it. Well, hope you guys have a great evening. And I'm sending love from me to you. This is Gone Girl. See you later. Bye.